Thank you, God, for this life. Saturday reflection time. Most people will never experience real power. You want to know why? Because they don't even know what it looks like. Because they are asleep when it is being built. Because most people are asleep in their own systems. That's right. If you're here with me at 4 a.m. for Saturday reflection, you're way ahead. Welcome to Raw for Epoch 1, Day 88, where we ask the question, can you breathe the rare air? Growth. Growth isn't just louder, it's lighter. Not everyone quits because they're weak. They quit because they can't breathe. The higher you go, the more the atmosphere changes. What used to fuel you now chokes you. The people, the habits, even your own thoughts. This isn't burnout. It is altitude sickness. You're trying to dominate new levels while breathing like you're still at sea level. That's not fatigue. That is outdated oxygen. And as we reflect and get into this concept overview, this is an elevation and carryover from yesterday's talk around elevation. You got to cut the people, cut the cord to get to the top. Now you got to change the way you breathe. So think of it like this: growth. Growth isn't just vertical, it is internal recalibration. Every level of ascension alters pressure, clarity, and thought metabolism. Old emotions don't survive at altitude, neither do weak rituals. You must adapt how you move, how you think, and how you breathe. The top. The top doesn't just require more, it requires different. And we're going to talk in great detail. What got you there won't keep you there and won't take you to the next level. And that is massively difficult to overcome. Let me give you a visual metaphor. We call this the cabin pressure shift. When a plane ascends too fast without pressurizing the cabin, passengers black out. And it is not the height that kills them, it's the system's failure to adapt to the new environment. The same is true with you, for you, and all of us. You are rising fast. Hopefully, you're not still sleeping on your system. But if you don't recalibrate your internal pressure, your thoughts, discipline, and spirit lose consciousness. Altitude without pressurization equals collapse. Not because you weren't built for it, but because you never sealed the cabin. I'm going to give you personal perspective. Consider what all this means. We're talking about you are elevating. It is just you. You're making steps, taking steps, making progress. What got you there will only keep you there. And here's how I feel, right? I think the hardest part of crossing levels is that realization. What got you here won't take you any further. But here's the twist on that. What got you here is still the fabric that keeps you grounded. Everything is paradoxical. It's not just to maintain, but to evolve. It is quite literally the paradox of growth. You climb one mountain, you conquer it, you touch the top, and then what? And then what? You have to go back down. You have to go back down. And you don't start from that mountain forward. You go back down. Why? Because there's a bigger one ahead. And the high that carried you to this summit, that helped you reach the top of this mountain, It doesn't scale. Not anymore. You think you're still moving on momentum. But what's really pulling you forward now is expectation. And expectation, it doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care what you've already done. There's this point. I can't tell you how it happens, what it feels like, but you'll get it. It's a click where your emotional system breaks rank with your old mindset, where your psychological operations no longer fire on command, when your body starts hesitating, not because it's broken, but because your oxygen no longer fits your altitude. And I'm going to give you the raw and uncooked on what nobody tells you. You start thinking you know. Why? Because you've gotten up a mountain. But the higher you go, the more your certainty becomes a liability. Even mentors can only guide so far. At some level, here is the hard, harsh truth of growth. It's why you go alone, because there is no more help. Just a higher demand. Less assistance, way more weight. And now you're sort of used to looking around for confirmation because somebody's always guided you along the way. And there's nothing. Nothing but your own reflection. And the more you rise, the more God watches. And he expects more oversight from you. Not because he's distant, but because he's promoted you. God is not micromanaging you anymore. The environment and the systems you are in are not micromanaging you anymore. He's waiting to see if you learn how to lead without his whisper. Because to go from runner to responder to route setter to route, you need to lead with no direction. You need to act with no applause and move when nobody is watching. That is where the altitude reveals you. That is where you think you want the smoke, and it gets real uncomfortable real fast. Because here's the kicker. As you ascend, you start supervising the very levels that once tried to pull you down. Your own thought processes and the people around you become the one they look to. You become the structure they depend on. You become the one who feeds the people who once resented your hunger. That's also why we cut the cord. Ironic, right? The people, the environment, the systems, they tried to hold you back. Now you've ascended. Now you have authority. Now they rely on you to eat. But it's not because they see your worth. It is because their survival is tied to your breathing. And in this way, it is why this is very, very low, very lonely, very quiet. And all those things hurt, but I tell you and I show you what it is not. It is not a punishment. Think of it like a trust fall into the version of you that doesn't need permission to keep climbing. At this level, you don't just manage yourself. You become the air others breathe. Which means you become the air others breathe through. And suffocating ain't an option anymore. We're going to get into a God kind of quote and some other stories. Let's check the chat. I think we should pause for reflection real quick. It's the greatest thing that I've learned that nobody ever really offered me in this way. At least I like to think like that. But I also believe it's the reality of growth at every level. I've said it already enough times to, I'm sure, make you nauseous. What got you here won't take you there, but what got you here is the very fabric that will allow you to continue to go there. In that, there are fundamentals that you must build. It is why you don't become sort of quote unquote a slave to your routine, but you become an author of how you schedule your routine. Why? When we become task driven, when we are on time every time, when we build up principles around God, faith, honor, loyalty, all those things are the fabric. All of that is what exposes you to new levels and alternate levels. The reality to that is you learn at minimum the processes required upstream and downstream. It is why our 4 R's in elevation, right? Runner, responder, route setter, route. This all drives towards you being able to supervise yourself. Dominion over yourself, authority over your life means you have to hold yourself accountable. I know these are buzzwords, but I'm not. We got to be careful of how we sell and wrap these things, especially with how our mind is wired and work. It's not that we don't think we want these things. We all want these things through varying degrees and levels. And I believe all of us are unique in that we have different reasons and different motivations and whys to how we get there. But the fabric and the stitching to how we get there fundamentally is the same. Accountability. This is why we talk about, do you run the system or does the system run you? Self-accountability is the first thing. It is why I said recently, it doesn't matter who sees me. I know it sounds cliche, but if God is always watching, you can help hold yourself accountable to that level. When you start to feel like, oh, I got to do these things regardless if the lights are on or not, that is self-accountability. That is it's not just a maturation. That is self-supervision. So in order for you to be an authority anywhere outside of your own system, you have to first author and be the authority to your own system. That is why your schedule is so important. That is why having a hierarchy and a drive towards one priority at a time is so important. That is why we cut the cord on things that don't and no longer serve us, because we have to maximize system efficiencies. If you're inefficient in any way, you run the risk of breaking efficiencies in other areas. Your system will not like contradiction. And in that way, the more you build your system towards a habitual pattern that is driven around your principles, the more it'll feed you more operational efficiencies to make yourself scale. This is all about being able to scale. It's all about being able to have the proper emotional, physical, and spiritual stamina, the endurance, the climb, right? And I think also of great significance before I get into God, kind of stoic and militant type fashions of what this also means. A lot of times we elevate and we do climb a mountain, and because it was so difficult to climb a mountain, we can run the risk of being defined by that one mountain, but there's many other mountains. And that's how some of us sort of elevate a little bit. We get promoted in our lives, we get promoted in our businesses, we get promoted with God, but then we plateau. Because it took so much to get to this next level, you sort of say to yourself, damn, I got to do that again. And here's the reality. The first mountain is usually really short. It's massively hard to break free from, but the first level of anything, if we want to put it back to runner to responder, which is essentially going from massively in a crowd that's being supervised and really micromanaged, like somebody's always, you got to do this, 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 to go to responder where you're sort of less micromanaged, it really just usually is effort. The break from the first rank is usually just, can you out-effort everybody? You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be the subject matter expert for sure. You just got to show a certain level of grit, determination, and authority, and drive and determination and will. Once you do that, you can pretty much ascend, boom, you can break through. But it does require a lot of effort because it's sort of like you're being held down and it almost feels like just physical effort. I just got to break free from the chains, but it takes a lot of work to break free from that. But the mountain's really short. You take that sprint, it feels like a sprint, like you just a long sprint. And then you get there, you kind of exhale, you're like, oh, okay, now what? You got to go back down the mountain. And then when you go back down the mountain, you got to use that same level of effort to get to the previous height you were at, but that mountain's a little bit higher. And so in that way, what got you there won't take you there, but you need everything that got you there to sort of help you move towards, framework-wise, the next level. Where's my chat at 4:15 on a Saturday? We're reflecting. I'm telling you, you know, elevation and promotions throughout your life, even how relationships evolve. If you pay attention and reflect. All right. This came from Isaiah 40:31. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. Seneca said this: it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Ooh. Julius Caesar crossing the Rubicon. The die is cast. How about this quote from a Navy SEAL? The only easy day was yesterday. Then Winston Churchill broke down this beautiful quote. If you're going through hell, keep going. How do we break this all down? Elevation isn't an achievement, it is an assignment. And every level costs more air. God doesn't shout at the summit, he watches. He watches to see if you'll still climb when the whispers stop. To see if you'll breathe discipline instead of dopamine. By the way, I am the dopamine dealer. We're going to get into that over the course of the next few weeks. He does it to see if you'll worship through altitude sickness. It's nauseating. The Stoics, they didn't chase applause. They trained for thin air. They knew suffering reveals truth faster than praise ever could. Back to Caesar and that die is cast, right? He didn't pause at the Rubicon. He crossed with lungs full of consequence, not because it was easy, but because suffocating in safety was worse than bleeding in purpose. Do you hear what I'm saying for your life? Are you running the system or is the system running you? Because suffocating in safety was worse than bleeding in purpose. Altitude doesn't kill the weak, it exposes the unprepared. You asked for the next level, but now the air is tight, the path is thin, and the silence is sacred. This ain't punishment. It's promotion without a spotter. No confirmation, no crowd, just covenant. If your system can't breathe here, it's not because God abandoned you. It's because he's waiting for you to breathe like a builder, not a beggar. This level, every level you ascend to requires breath mastery. Not just muscle, not just grind, obedience under pressure. Execution without air. Because the higher you go, the more the mountain demands your lungs match your legacy. You still want to rise without recalibrating your breath? You still think thin air means you're off track? No, it does not. What it means is, it means you are finally climbing. Are you willing to expand your system while you run it? Do you really want to elevate? Do you really want that promotion through God, through your career, through your relationships, through life? Let's separate the system and talk about how the air is different up here. Worth repeating. You can't bring sea level habits into summit level conditions. The thoughts that once energized you now weigh down your lungs. The oxygen of momentum must be replaced by the oxygen of mastery. Separation starts when you realize you're burning energy just trying to breathe old identity into a new environment. Do you understand that for yourself? Let's talk about spirit separation. God is not whispering less. You're just overloaded with noise that doesn't belong at this elevation. Faith doesn't sound the same in thin air. It becomes quieter, sharper, more exact. The climb. The climb exposes whether your faith was real or just noise tolerance. Let's separate at the system level. Every system must compress at altitude. This is a massively important line. What is not lean becomes lethal. Do you even know how to lean yourself out? Outdated rituals become risk. Crowds become chaos. Even structure must be restructured. Systems that don't evolve with altitude become sabotage in disguise. Evolve or expire. Own the system or be erased by it. Are you running your system or is the system running you? There are consequences. The consequences of inaction equate to suffocation in slow motion. We separate them with the SSS model, self, spirit, system. For yourself, you don't burn out from effort. You burn out from trying to breathe like the old you. It is not fatigue. It is respiratory failure of the identity. Do you understand what we're talking about with your system and with your life and with the identity that is likely very fragmented? How could you want new breath still trying to breathe old air? How could you want new life still living like the old you? How could you want new wins still repeating old losses? This is a lot simpler when you frame it than you think. Of course, massively difficult to implement. But if you're not stopping to realize what you are doing and what is happening to yourself, I don't know what else to tell you. The consequences for spirit. You will start doubting God's presence when what you really lack is calibration. It is not abandonment. It is a call to operate on breath of obedience, not the fumes of inspiration. Obedience. Are you praying to be saved or praying to be pushed? Your system consequences. Keep everything the same, and the same will collapse everything. Altitude punishes excess. Your structure implodes, not from weakness, but from unadapted strength. Did you hear that? Altitude punishes excess. If you're holding on to too much of what got you here, it won't take you there. And it is an implosion. We like to think everything is so externally driven that there'll be this massive, obvious explosion. No. You have unadapted strength. You only have the stamina and the endurance and the lung capacity for where you are at. And if you don't stretch any further than where you are now, you'll never be able to handle additional life ownership. Ask yourself, sit back logically and consider, how could you ask for more carrying the same weight? How could you request more graciousness and abundance to be grateful for when you're still not fully grateful for where you are right now? How do I know that? How do you know that? You're still complaining. So why could you expect more abundance, greater abundance, wider, broader, infinite abundance when the ones you have and the things you have right now, you can't even be thankful for. At least not long enough to make it cliche and front for the crowd through brief moments of inspiration, motivation, and awareness. I wake up, I keep telling you, I wake up every day. Thank you, God, for this life. I go to sleep every night. Thank you, God, for this life. And if I don't get more tomorrow, I did everything I could to take with me to wherever I'm going if I don't wake up. We're talking about breath. Are you even grateful for your breath? Do you even sit with yourself long enough to realize the beauty of breath? Oh, that's too corny. That's too cliche. That's cheesy. That won't sell. You don't understand what you can become if you become your own system. I say this all the time. There's something coming out soon. I am the high. I am high off myself at all times. I am high off God at all times. I am high on life all the time. You don't got to ask me the 426 on a Saturday. It doesn't mean nothing to me. I don't even care about the time. I'm telling you, I'm high. I wake up like, yo, let's go get it. If you still got to ask if it's painful and if it hurts and if sometimes you can't breathe, you ain't really about it. You can't be about it. How could you not expect pain? I know what it sounds like. I just don't understand how we can elude this conversation and elude the realities of this. I literally, I didn't realize it was Saturday till I woke up and I looked at my script before I got prepared to realize where I'm at. I just move, man. Why? All that matters is I have my life. What do I do in my life? Whatever I said I'm going to do. Why? I run my system. I wake up 3 o'clock in the morning before the alarm clock rings. You want to, oh my God. I know how, I get it. I'm on the mic, right? But how do I get here? Because I've reflected enough. I've walked enough mountains. I've cut enough dead weight. There's nothing restricting me anymore. So in that way, there's nothing for me to stress and worry about except for the pain that is required to go through for next level ownership. And the infiniteness, the finite seeking the infinite. Do you hear what I'm trying to even express to you? The finite seeking the infinite. How do I stay high on my own supply at all times? I got to be the supplier. I'm the product. We say out loud that we want the ownership. We can't even figure out how to own ourselves. We don't even know what that means. That's why I ask you, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? Is it even yours? You can't scale the mountain of self-abundance when you're still moving as somebody else. It's not even that you haven't cut the rope and you got mad people attached to you. It's not even you walking the mountain, scaling the mountain, climbing the mountain. It's not even you. You haven't even found yourself yet. All right. I got you though. I got you. Here's how to take ownership. Calibrate or collapse. Calibrate or collapse. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm recalibrating. I don't want to get too hyped. I got a lot to do today. For yourself, we're taking ownership. For yourself, rewire your rituals. Upgrade one foundational habit to match the air you are in, not the one you've escaped from. Your mornings, your movement, your mindset. One of them needs summit lungs. Excuse me. I tell you, before anything else can change, if you just rewired your mornings, everything else has to fall in line. Your nighttime will collapse into your morning. Why? When you have a lot to do in the morning, you can't fuck around at night. Good. Again, it's Saturday. I'll ask this every Saturday. How many of you haven't gotten over your hungover? I've been there, my G. I'm just telling you. Summit lungs. You're asking for elevation, but you're still moving like the old you, moving at the level you're at. This can be a foundational habit. You dominate your morning, your nighttime falls in line. What do you think happens to everything in the middle? Your spirit. We're talking about how to take ownership. Here's how to take ownership of your spirit. You want to ask for something. We stop begging, please. We ask, request, command spiritual oxygen. Not rescue, not relief. Ask God to help you breathe under the weight. Because why? This is the weight he's trusting you with. Pray for lungs, not escape. Imagine that you pray and you request, and God opens you up a little lane to walk through. And what? You need help from that? You need to be pulled out? You want to tap out? Pray for lungs, not escape. System. Compress to elevate. Audit everything. Audit everything. Strip what's ornamental. Keep only what serves movement, clarity, and breath control. At this altitude, legacy is built by what you cut more than what you carry. Everything can't come. Everyone can't come. And here's the thing I'm realizing too. If they mean that much to you, you can come back to get them. Straight up. But you gotta go alone. You gotta go alone. You gotta elevate alone. This is what these last 2 days have been about. Reflecting. And you carry your why with you on the way too. It's gotta be bigger than you. It's gotta be all about you because of what you and all about you serves. So even if you don't have the legacy family and you don't have the significant other relationship, children, whatever creation outside of you, that's why we tap into root source and creator. You're an expression of God. However you define God, God is experiencing through you. You can carry God up the mountain. Hear what I'm saying and the power that is there for you. Creator. It's there for you. Let's get into our ARR challenge. You should know this by now if you follow. ARR, audit, replace, report. We call this one the altitude enablement. We start with our audit. Ask yourself these questions, starting here. Where are you breathing like someone you've already outgrown? Where are you breathing like someone you've already outgrown? Pay attention to how you're moving. How you're moving, we keep saying it, isn't how you're going to move later. It's not to say the fabric, how you got to here. Like you got to here somehow. Everything that got you here is important and critical. You got to reuse it to get you to the next level. But you've outgrown yourself here already. If you've already outgrown yourself, stop breathing like that. Where are you breathing like someone you've already outgrown, right? What habit still runs on momentum instead of mastery? There's also downward momentum, upward and downward pressure. The momentum of your life, everything that got you to where you're at, is still in motion even if you stop to stay still. And you can't elevate until you've mastered where you're at, identified it, and moved. Ask yourself this. What relationships costs you too much oxygen to justify at this level? Everybody can't come. What relationship costs you too much oxygen? Who is draining you? Where are the energy vampires? You don't need as many people around you as you realize, especially if you're trying to ascend. I can't tell you the liberation, and it doesn't happen immediately. You're going to go through like withdrawal. Am I missing something? No, you're not missing anything. You want to know how I know? That momentum of the people who are around you, I don't care if it's 5 years later. I can call people who I've left years ago. They're still in the same momentum space. You talk to them for 10 minutes, you'll figure out everything you already knew. But they're costing you oxygen. You can't breathe because they're holding you back. But really at this point, it's you holding you back. How don't you realize that? Ask yourself, where are you still waiting for direction when you were promoted to lead? Oof. Find the altitude drag. Find the leak in your lungs. You are being suffocated. A stagnant life will suffocate you. Breathe. Then we replaced. Craft your summit command. The air and this air was made for me. I don't need more oxygen. I need more ownership. This air was made for me. I don't need more oxygen. I need more ownership. Let it become your anchor when clarity fades, when your lungs panic, when silence feels like absence instead of promotion. Say it until it breathes you. Then we report on it. We make it real in physical reality. Prove your recalibration. Cut one thing that no longer breathes well up here. Upgrade one ritual that forces your lungs to match your level. Show up without applause, oxygen, or approval and still execute. Imagine stagnation is choking you. Go a little bit higher. You're going to choke anyway. Today's proof is breath under pressure. Don't just inhale. Ascend. My beautiful people. You thought the top would be louder, but real power doesn't echo, it absorbs. You thought success would give you more, but it only gave you less to breathe and more to carry. You thought God would speak more clearly, but he already did when he let you keep climbing. At this altitude, old lungs do not survive. Old thoughts do not hold. Old routines do not run. This ain't about hustle anymore. It is about breath control under divine assignment. So breathe different, move different, lead like the air is thin, because it is. You do not need more applause. You need fewer excuses. You do not need a new path. You need better lungs. And God, he doesn't lower the mountain. He upgrades the climber. Own the system or be erased by it, because you either run the system or the system runs you. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.